All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I am Jay Croucher, joined by V-Money Sports Vaughn Dalzell. Today we're going to talk about, briefly, Cowboys-Titans, and we're going to welcome in PFF's Ben Brown to break down the biggest games on the Week 17 slate. But Vaughn, first off, how are you, and how did you enjoy the Josh Dobbs experience?
Oh my God. It was much better than the Steelers' Josh Dobbs experience. So it's good to say he looked a little better over time, but yeah, not very good. That game was a snoozer. I mean, if you weren't watching Florida State rather than watching Thursday Night Football, you're not really a football fan, in my opinion, Jay. Maybe you are a true football fan if you stay up to watch Cowboys and Titans over Florida State. But yeah, great day yesterday. I think there's great college football today. And then, NFL Sunday is going to be electric with all the playoff matchups. How was your day?
I was good. I did have to stay up to watch Titans Cowboys. I'm going to talk about that game on a few different platforms today. So I did stay up and watched it mercilessly. I would say my two big takeaways from the game are, one, yeah, Josh Dobbs was better than Malik Willis, but he was still really bad. And the Titans offense couldn't do anything. They were extremely inefficient. You look at their drop back EPA, play, all of that kind of stuff. It was pretty grim. And I do think that, yes, there was at least a little bit more competence in passing the ball, and he looked better than Malik Willis. But at the same time, this Cowboys defense has not been good the past few weeks, and still there wasn't much there on the Josh Dobbs front. And then the other thing is that this Titans run defense, like, you take half the defensive starters out, you take Jeffrey Simmons out, and they're still amazing. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
One of the great units in football, the Titans run defense, which, like, I don't think is gonna be the decisive factor against the Jags, who are throwing the ball much better than they have been. But yeah, it is very impressive what Mike Vrabel has built in Tennessee. Any takeaways around the Cowboys, who looked again pretty uninspiring?
Well, I think the rushing defense for Tennessee looked a lot better since Tony Pollard wasn't out there for Dallas. If he was out there, this game probably looks a little bit different, at least a little bit better for Dak Prescott with his 2 interceptions. I mean, he's been turning the ball over a ton, man. I think it's 9 of the 11 or 12 games now this season. So I'm not in love with the Cowboys of doing. I think that they're going to be a fade first round of playoffs. I can't wait to get my hands all over them, unless they're playing. I mean, even if they're playing Tom Brady and the Bucks. I might have to take a look at fading the Cowboys in this spot, Jay. I just don't have much confidence in how the defense has been playing lately, and Dak Prescott keeping the ball clean. Zeke's a goal line type of guy. Tony Pollard and CeeDee Lamb. Those are Michael Gallup too. I'll throw him in there. Those are your guys. I don't think Dalton Schultz is going to be making an impact either with his 2 touchdowns last night. So, yeah, Cowboys, we got to fade them any way we can.
Yeah, the Cowboys right now plus 475 to win the NFC. I wouldn't get involved with that price. You're better off just, if you do believe in the Cowboys, if you just multiply what their money line prices will be, if we assume that the Eagles will get the 1 seed and win the NFC East. So, yeah, not interested there. I do believe in the Cowboys offense. I think Dak last night, like, fumbled snap. That was weird. And then the ball comes off the receiver's chest. Again, a weird interception. And if you think about the other way, like, Josh Dobbs threw a pick six to Trayvon Diggs that Diggs just dropped, and then also threw it into the end zone to Treylon Burks between about 15 different Cowboys defensive players. I don't know what that was either. So it was a very strange game. But
Josh Dobbs experience.
Looking forward to Dobbs v. Lawrence, the blockbuster that we all expected before the season to decide the magnificent AFC South. All right, before we bring in Ben Brown, a reminder to download the Roto World app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in the App Store today. All right, let's welcome in Ben from PFF. Ben, how are you? And I'll ask you the same question I asked Vaughn. How'd you enjoy the Josh Dobbs experience? Does that change anything about your AFC South handicap for next week?
No, I'm still, I'm very invested in the Jaguars to make the playoffs. I do have a little bit on them to win the AFC South, but yeah, this is, very much a spot where I need the Jaguars pretty bad. So overall, it was, a pleasant viewing experience for me from that perspective, because the Titans obviously didn't really showcase a whole lot of ability, I would say, to knock off the Jaguars. So sitting pretty good with that perspective. But I'm with Vaughn. I was, very intrigued in both of the bowl games that were happening at the same time as well. So thankfully there was, multiple viewing options for Thursday Night Football. Thankfully, because that's, basically the first time we've had that all season. It was very much needed, I would say, based on how both teams performed last night.
Yeah, that's fair. I won't lie. I was for a stretch of Thursday Night Football. I was watching Grizzlies Raptors, so it wasn't too much to see there. All right, let's jump into Week 17. Let's start off with the Bears at the Lions. The Lions are 6-point favorites back in the Dome, much to Jared Goff's delight. The total is 52. And Ben, you think that the Bears might be a little underrated here?
Yeah, I think that, obviously the concern is the Bears are probably a lesser version of what they were 7 weeks ago when these two teams faced off. Going to be missing Jalen Johnson, who, from PFF's perspective is very much their best coverage cornerback. They can't generate, any pressure whatsoever consistently from their front seven. But this it's going to be weird, right? It was weird in Week 10. The Lions still very much, I would say, poor from a run defense perspective. They ranked 24th in PFF. Grade as a unit. Justin Fields ran all over him in that Week 10 matchup, 147 yards, 112 after contact, 6 first downs from rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns. I think, with him kind of back in the fold, it's going to be more of the same. So I do expect probably the Lions to win at the end, but I think it's going to be chaotic. It's going to be stressful. I think they're going to have a really difficult time covering the 6-point spread. So I'm leaning in the Bears' direction. I actually probably prefer, their first half spread at +3.5 a little bit more than I like the full game number. So that's the one spot that I probably locked into this matchup. But I think it's going to be definitely tighter than what the betting market projects right now.
I'm 100% with you, Ben. When I looked at this seemed like a total trap line for everybody that loves Detroit Lions, including myself, because I've been riding the Lions quite often the past 8-9 weeks. And this is a spot where the Bears have historically done well against the Lions. I mean, they've won 7 out of the last 9 matchups. They've won the last 4 at Detroit. And now you got Fields, who's been playing his best football this season of his career, and lately, the last 2 months particularly. I look at this spot, and I want to back the Bears, and I'm with you in the first half. The full game might get a little fluky. The Lions have a lot of playmakers. They do well when Amon-Ra St. Brown, Swift are in the game. They're an ATS machine, but I think the first half Bears line is possibly the best play here. Jay, you like that play too?
Yeah, my concern would be that I don't see how the Bears stop Detroit from getting to 30, where this defense, which think about what the defense did against Buffalo, where basically freezing cold conditions, Allen throws 2 picks, does not play well at all, and the Bears still give up 35 to the Bills. And now I think of Goff, who was fine last week against a pretty solid Carolina defense, but now he goes into the Dome against the Bears pass defense. It's already really bad, and now is missing lots of bodies in the secondary. So, yeah, I think the Bears will be able to score, certainly, on Detroit, but I think they might need to get to 27 to cover, which is totally in play, and there is a reason why this is the highest total on the board, sitting at 52 at the moment. All right, let's go to the blockbuster, Colts-Giants. Giants -6. The total is a robust 38.5 in New Jersey. Ben, what's your read on this game?
Oh man, this one is ugly. 2 teams that I have, for the most part been fading, I would say, especially in the second half of the season. I've been on the opposite side of the Colts since Jeff Saturday took over, and it's, worked out outside of that Raiders game. So I think kind of leaning in that direction, is still very much the handicap for this matchup. Giants, can suffer a loss and still get into the playoffs, but PFF simulation has them with a 78% chance of getting into the playoffs with a loss here. So very much motivated. We've seen Brian DeBoer kind of be able to script some successful, EPA plays up early. I think he's still a little bit underrated from a coaching perspective. I know he's probably not, coach of the year material, but probably at least, in some ways, has landed as a top 5 offensive play caller in football. And what the Colts put forth, especially in that mindset with Parker Frazier and Jeff Saturday trying to scheme up an offensive game plan, that's going to be a certifiable disaster. It has been so far this season. From an EPA perspective, they are dead last on scripted pass plays so far this season. And it's been, a dramatic drop off, even going from Frank Reich to Jeff Saturday. So I'm going with another first half bet in this one. I'm seeing, some numbers with the Giants closer to -5.5. When you look at that, you can get Giants at -3. So even paying just a little bit of juice to stick down that -3 number, I think the Giants first half is probably my favorite bet right now on this game.
I'm going first half, 2 picks in a row. I can't disagree with that either, though. But I'll say this, just from a motivational aspect at this time of the year, the Giants are the obvious team that you want to play on here. I don't see what the point of the Colts ending the season on a high point is. At this point, chase the best draft pick possible. And I mean, that's the easy cap in this game, but that might be, anything other than that might be thinking too much into this, in my opinion. So yeah, the Giants will be in my money line parlays for sure. I think that they get this one done as they fight for their playoff hopes. I feel like we're going to have a difference on this game, Ben. We're playing nice here. I'm playing nice with you and agreeing with you. But this game is definitely going to be a tight one. The Vikings and the Packers go. It's Lambeau Field. Packers laying 3.5. For the last 2-3 weeks now, on this show particularly, Drew has been beating the drum on the Packers. I've been backing him up on this. Jay, I hope you're riding the train because we went from plus 800 to plus 200 to make the playoffs now. Big go, Pack, go, guys. Are you on the Vikings or the Packers?
So I've been riding, the Vikings for the most part. It hasn't been, I would say, all that great from a spread perspective. ATS basically, especially, in the Colts game a couple weeks ago and with Giants last week. But the obviously the underlying metrics say that this Vikings are a very mid-tier team, right? Even if they are mid-tier in a number of spots, but from PFF's perspective, they've graded out quite well. They have had a lot of high variance type plays, but I think when they are fully healthy, they do have players at key positions that can potentially allow them to beat other teams. So I know everyone's kind of watching this Jair Alexander versus Justin Jefferson matchup. I expect them to kind of face off against each other once in a while, but that's a spot where Jefferson won in week 1. I very much don't think there's any cornerback in football that can cover Justin Jefferson. So I do expect him to get his, but I don't expect Alexander to kind of shadow him. Where I think this handicap goes and where I think the game's probably going to be decided is, that match with Zadarius Smith, who's, third from, a total pressures perspective generated so far this season from PFF grading, him going up against David Bakhtiari, who does look like he's going to be back, and fully healthy. If the Packers win that matchup, the Vikings secondary is going to be absolutely exposed. It's been exposed a number of times this season. They are going to, have Harrison Smith in the fold once again. That was kind of, I think, the key injury that, saw them drop to, I would say, one of the worst units in football from a coverage perspective. If he's back in the fold, if Smith is kind of generating some of these quick pressure type situations, which the Vikings have been pretty good at, I think they're 5th in, pressures generated in under 3 seconds when not blitzing. So from that perspective, if Bakhtiari is struggling a little bit, the handicap for me is the Vikings can come back and potentially win this game at plus 3.5. So if it gets down to 3, I very much think it's probably Packers or bust, but sitting out here at plus 3.5, even with some juice, I just think the Vikings probably have more talent on their roster than what people are giving them credit for. Probably, I would say, especially from PFF's perspective, we have them as kind of like a top 5 type roster and generating wins above replacements. So they have the pieces in place. It's obviously been fluky so far, but flukiness can run its course throughout the entire season and may not regress in any given week, I would say.
Yeah, I think that it's very strange that the Vikings just aren't better, given the talent on their roster, to your point, Ben. And it's weird to say that about a team that's 12-3. Why isn't the 12-3 team better? But I don't understand why their underlying performance isn't better. They do have talented guys on that defense between Zadarius Smith, Danielle Hunter getting a really good season out of Patrick Peterson, Harrison Smith. Like, there are guys there. They should be better on pass defense than they are, which makes me think that might be a scheme or coaching thing. But I do think that, at 3.5, I would lean Vikings. Sorry, Vaughn. I just with the practice reports as well, it looks like Christian Watson hasn't practiced the past 2 days after exiting at halftime with the hip injury. That's significant. Looks like Bakhtiari will play, to your point, Ben. But on the other side, Garrett Bradbury might be out. He hasn't practiced the past 2 days. Looks like James Lynch is going to be out as well. So definitely one to watch for. If Bradbury's out and Watson is in, then I think that would be a pretty material shift.
You're not nervous that the Minnesota Vikings, all 3 of their losses this year came as underdogs? They won one as an underdog against the Bills, which was the luckiest probably play of the NFL season besides the Patriots-Raiders fiasco a few weeks ago. But I don't want to fade Aaron Rodgers at this point in the season. They have their backs against the wall. They're looking better. They're streaking right now. Rushing game is better. Defense slightly. They haven't played the opponents that you might say, oh, I'm impressed. But again, I just like the Packers here. I'm going to keep riding the hot team heading to the playoffs and fade the Vikings anytime they're the underdogs. It's been profitable, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, I'm going to keep riding the Cincinnati Bengals, who are plus 1.5 Point
Can't argue
dog
with that.
home to the Buffalo Bills. The total there is 49.5, one of the highest on the board on Monday Night Football. What's your lean on this game, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I might be missing something, but I think this is an absolute smash spot on the over, right? Obviously, there has been a few injury situations, I think specifically with Lyle Collins. But other than him, like, it's been all defense from an injury perspective. And I still think, no Von Miller in the fold. I think the Bills have basically dropped from like a league average pressure rate generated unit to like 22nd overall. So probably a bottom third, bottom fourth team. From that perspective, I don't buy into their secondary a whole lot. I think the Micah Hyde injury has been, in a lot of ways, probably understated to how valuable he actually was to this defense. And Tre'Davious White has been back and in the fold, but very much, I would say, has kind of been the guy that's been picked on in both the matchups that they have faced off against high volume passing attacks in the Jets and Bills. So I don't think he's fully back to form as well either. So I expect the Bengals to be able to break off some chunk plays. Obviously, they need to do something with Lyle Collins lost, scheming some double teams with, that situation, because Akeem Adjani, I think, allowed like 7 or more pressures last week in 45 pass block snaps. So that is a situation that the Bengals are very much going to have to provide some sort of counterpunch to, but we've seen them kind of be able to, navigate a suspect offensive line. Joe Burrow's obviously been much better from a sack perspective in the second half of this season. So I don't think that's going to be as influential to this one. So I expect a lot of points to be scored. I don't really see any way either defense, has a ton of success slowing down these teams, especially if we are seeing some chunk plays. So over 49.5, I definitely think it's a spot where, it comes down to the last possession. So probably trading some in-game numbers if I can get either side of either team basically at like plus 3.5. That's definitely going to be a spot I lock into, because I very much think this is going to be a game that comes down to the last possession.
Yeah, I thought the Bengals would be a fantastic teaser option here, getting them at 7.5 number against the Bills. They've just been streaking all season long. I really want to ask you in particular though, because I like the over. I feel like the 49.5 may be a little low. I expected a 51.5 for this game, 100%. But the Bills are graded as a 17th best PFF offense. Can you just touch on how that's possible and why people are going to be confused by that? But I mean, you watch them all year. I'm not totally shocked. I would have thought around the 10 to 12 range, but you got them at 17. What's that about?
Is that overall offensive grade on 0 to 100 scale? Is that what it is? Yeah. I mean, So we do have them, and in some ways it's probably a reflection of where they are at on both offensive line, but we haven't actually, I would say, been overly impressed with, some of the receiving unit as well. Like Stephon Diggs, I think, is like 4th or 5th in PFF wide receiver ranking, but outside of him, it's been kind of poor. So we do have, to go back to it, we do have some different grading type approaches based on our play-by-play data that we use behind the scenes. So if you look at something like PFF Greenline tool, we do have the Bills as the 3rd best offense, kind of using this opponent adjusted type basis for how well they performed on a per play basis. And I do think, that's kind of the metric that we do fold into a lot of our betting models and stuff. So although it says 17 on, the consumer site and stuff, doing some more, I would say, tweaks to how they actually arrived at that, and not necessarily just aggregating the overall score against teams that they, maybe should have beat up against a lot more, maybe had a really difficult time because they were a really difficult matchup. That's probably kind of how we arrived at that. But I think, like you said, I think they're much closer to, a top 10, even a top 5 offense. And a lot of the other ways that we kind of distill the grading, they definitely arrive in that range, I would say.
So Ben, from Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, we go now to Kenny Pickett, Tyler Huntley, the only natural segue. Blockbuster game on Sunday Night Football on NBC. The line is Ravens minus 2.5. The look ahead was more in the 6 range when it looked like there might be a chance of Lamar Jackson, and still technically there is a chance, but certainly wouldn't expect him to play with the Ravens having clinched a playoff spot. The total here is 35.5. Is that total too low? Is this line too rich? What do you think, Ben?
Man, I feel like it's the same Steelers every single year. I actually have quite a bit of exposure on the Browns to finish 4th in the AFC North. So I've been really actively rooting for the Steelers here the past couple of weeks, and they've definitely come through. But they're very much a team that I would say definitely holds their own against teams that are on the same level as them. I think, the Mike Tomlin experience kind of puts them, at an advantage against the teams that maybe are similar from a talent perspective to what they have on the field. And I very much think that, given the Ravens pass catching options now with basically Mark Andrews and a bunch of, what would be very close to practice squad guys for a number of other teams in the NFL, like that's concerning. Tyler Huntley has been a pretty good backup quarterback, but, still isn't offering the same high-end ceiling type outcomes that Lamar Jackson has. So I think these teams are really close. And I think given that, in most situations, I'll probably lean in Mike Tomlin's direction. I think at, plus 2.5, even with the betting market kind of continuing to move in the Steelers direction, I still think that's probably the right side. So I would probably go Steelers plus 2.5. The total, I don't know. I mean, I do think it's too low, but at the same time, I think both these coaches are going to I would try to maximize the time spent in every single possession. And I could see this game try to be, as short as possible from both sides. So I think, the 35.5 probably is still a little bit too low, but we're going to need one or two chunk plays, I would say, to get over that. And I'm not quite sure we're going to see that on Sunday night. So Steelers are bust, probably lean over, but definitely don't have a strong feeling on that one in particular.
Ben, it's AFC North football in January. You know what's going to happen out there on that football field. I'm in Pennsylvania right now. It has been the coldest week of my life up until yesterday. It was literally -20 and -30 filled for 3 straight days. So, the fact that this is Baltimore is nice for them. But Mike Tomlin's done very well as a road dog in Baltimore. And I feel like this is another team where I've been playing into. I'm naturally a Steelers fan, so I always say take what I say with a grain of salt. But when I bet my team, pretty confident in them. I think this is a good spot to ride with the Steelers or take an under, but we'll get to that a little later.
Yeah, what a game. What a game it will be. The Steelers, they just, they are the epitome of a 500 football team, and they kind of have been for a little while now. So, yeah, you go Steelers for Good for you. All right, so everyone, you can follow Ben on Twitter at PFF_Ben Brown. Ben, what are you working on at the moment?
Yes, we have I would say a play-by-play simulation that is, capable of, I would say, pricing out a lot of these same game parlay events in a pretty accurate manner, and also provides a lot of insights. We are working on, testing the accuracy of it based on where it is in relation to the betting market, and then trying to get it in front of users' hands as quickly as possible. So we are kind of in a beta testing phase, and hopefully going to roll that out to PFF subscribers by playoff time, which is exciting because I've been working on it for way too long for it to have taken this long, I would say, as well. So,
okay, very good. All right, well, make sure to follow Ben on Twitter. Check out all his stuff. Thanks for joining us, Ben, and good luck to your Chicago Bears in the first half.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, guys. Have a great show.
Thank
you. All right. Before we finish off, just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen during bowl season and in the Premier League. There's also $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the outcome between the Steelers and Ravens in our Sunday Night 7 contest. All right, Vaughn, we're going to help the viewers and listeners with one of those questions in the Sunday Night 7 contest. Kenny Pickett, pass yards against the Ravens. What are you going with here?
We're going to go with 180 to 199 passing yards, Jay. And it's easy. Kenny Pickett hasn't thrown for 200 yards back-to-back games all season. He did 244 against the Raiders. So what are we doing? We're going under 200 passing yards. What do you like in this one?
Yeah, I'm very much on your wavelength here. I think that with the Baltimore defense, which is getting better, I think it is a properly elite unit, and they're going to have to lean on it given what they're not getting on the other side of the ball. So I always like taking the big bands, just the biggest range of outcomes. So I'll go Kenny Pickett less than 180 yards on Sunday Night Football. All right, let's finish off with our best bets. And Vaughn, I think mercilessly we're going to stay with Steelers Ravens.
Yeah, sorry, everybody watching, listening. But this is just how it works out. Sunday Night Football, we know that the game got flexed, and rightfully so. The Steelers have been streaking, in my opinion. Jay, don't hate. But 4 of the last 5 games, the Steelers have won. They've won 5 of the 7 since the bye. The rushing game has improved by over 45 yards per game. Offensive lines look much better. And the narrative around the Steelers early in the season was that they suck. And I'm not going to argue with you that they didn't. But what I will say is they played the hardest schedule in football between weeks 3 and 8. And some of the teams they played were brutal. And you started Kenny Pickett versus teams that he should not have started against. So This is another spot where he gets his first game against Baltimore. Mike Tomlin has been just an awesome coach when it comes to preparing for Baltimore, an underdog, as a road underdog, He's 8-2 ATS in the last 10, 6-4 on the money line. He's covered and won 3 straight in Baltimore as the road dog. All right, you got Tyler Huntley, not Lamar Jackson. This is the second time seeing Huntley. And last time we talked about this game, Jay, we talked about how TJ Watt was banged up, and we were taking Baltimore in that spot while Pittsburgh was a small favorite. We're flipping. We're taking Pittsburgh now as the small road dog in Baltimore to get this win because Baltimore already clinched, like you said earlier. This is a huge max desperation win spot for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we're going to ride them. We're going to say, here we go, and wave our terrible towels all Sunday night on NBC Sports.
Yeah, no, I like it. I'm with you. I think the Steelers are the side here. And in all seriousness, I do kind of like these games. AFC North, smash mouth football. Yeah. Let's just see if Willis McGahee's available to sub in. Feels like his type of game.
Willis McGahee and Ryan Clark, baby. Bring them back.
Exactly right. All right, my best bet this week is the New Orleans Saints plus 6.5 at the Philadelphia Eagles. This line has been going all over the place. It was 7. It got down to 5 in some spots. Now it's back up to 6.5. Not expecting Jalen Hurts to play. If he does, then that would give me a little trouble. But I don't think that Hurts will play. I think the key here is the injury situations, even outside of Jalen Hurts, and Avonte Maddox is out. He's been important for the Eagles. As soon as he came out of the game against the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb went into the slot and just started cooking. Lane Johnson, one of the best tackles in football, he is out. Gardner Johnson out as well. And then on the other side of the ball, we might finally see Marshawn Lattimore, who I think has been out since week 5, but he's looking closer and closer and closer. I think this will be his best chance to play yet. And then the big thing is Chris Olave, who people might have forgotten about. But Chris Olave, who missed the Cleveland game with a hamstring, he has practiced the past 2 days, been a limited participant. Expect that he'll be listed questionable today, but I would think that he is a pretty clear favorite to play if he is getting in multiple practices this week. And that makes the Saints an entirely different team. Like he's their best skill position player. It's not Alvin Kamara. It is Chris Olave. He is the most important skill position guy on that offense. And it's a little bonus bet. Chris Olave, 30-1 offensive rookie of the year. He's 56 receiving yards behind Garrett Wilson. He's played 2 less games. And if they upset the Eagles and Olave has a good game, then, the way this market goes, he could just easily be favorite in 5 days. So I think that our 30-1 Chris Olave offensive rookie of the year is far too generous. He shouldn't be 30-1 if Garrett Wilson is minus 200. That doesn't make any sense at all. Olave, like I said, 56 yards behind in 2 fewer games, and there's still 2 games to play. So, I'm a New Orleans Saints man this week, riding with Andy Dalton for better or worse. But Saints plus 6.5 and Chris Olave, Roy. All right, don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for those of you watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe to us. From Jay Croucher and Vaughn Dalzell. Have a great weekend. Good luck with your bets.